Hi, my name is Callum Williams, business journalist for Payment Expert, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined today with Jordan Walker, the CEO of the UK's first major Bitcoin conference event, Bitcoin Collective. I'm sure we'll get onto the event in due course, but first of all, Jordan, how are you doing today? Thank you for taking your time out to speak with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, doing really good and looking forward to chatting with you.
So could you briefly tell us what Bitcoin Collective sets out to achieve?
We started a podcast 2 years ago called The Crypto Standard, and then we've me and my co-host have been on a journey through cryptocurrency and looking at multiple different cryptocurrencies. And as we got deeper into it, we found that Bitcoin was the one that we wanted to focus on because we saw it as the most important one. So we changed the name of our podcast to the Bitcoin Collective. And then we just had this crazy idea of putting on a conference, because on the podcast, we always talked about what America was doing and America doing this, America doing that. And there wasn't that much happening in the UK. Yeah, there was little pockets of things happening to do with Bitcoin, but we wanted to make a bigger impact than that and really raise awareness and adoption of Bitcoin, especially with what's happening at the moment. So Bitcoin is a form of money. So if you look what's happening in the economy today, a lot of people don't actually know why this is happening. And I think questioning this and just asking yourself, why is inflation over 10%? Like, that's a really important question to ask yourself. And then once you figure out why this is happening, then we just wanted to offer that solution, which we see as Bitcoin.
Yeah, and so obviously last Friday and Saturday you indeed held the Bitcoin Collective conference in Edinburgh. Just what were some of your key takeaways from the event and your feelings overall on the weekend?
It was so we put this conference together in under 5 months, and this is a conference with 550 people. It's just a small team of us putting a large scale conference on, and it's our first one as well. So it was better than I could have ever imagined. So what I'm saying to people is, if someone had come up to me 4 months ago and said, write down your perfect scenario of how your first conference would go, that whole list would have been ticked off. Because what made this conference really special is the atmosphere and the feeling of hope, or that there is a different way out. Because if you look at the news at the moment, it is a lot of doom and gloom. It's cost of living, inflation, people can't pay their electricity bills. And this is because of the money that we use today. And we are trying to raise awareness of a different form of money. So there was a lot of hope in the air. The atmosphere was amazing. And to have some of the best speakers in Bitcoin traveling from around the world to come and help the UK and globally learn more about Bitcoin was, it was a phenomenal feeling, and something, very special over those 2 days happened.
You know, like you said, like the current time we're in right now is a lot of economic downturn. There's, especially in this country with the political scene going on, I think people are trying to find new ways out. And I do believe that, Rishi Sunak was quite a, big supporter of, digital assets and digital currencies. Do you guys, to best of your knowledge, do you know when there could potentially be a defined crypto regulation bill, and could it potentially come under Sunak's, tenure at the minute?
Yeah, I don't know when that will happen. It's nobody really knows when that will happen, but most likely America will move first, because the dollar is the world reserve currency, then they usually are further ahead. So whatever they do, then the UK will usually follow. Whether we will change that up this time and we will try and take initiative and actually want to be at the forefront of this, then I don't know how that will play out.
It's probably fair to say that, crypto and Bitcoin have kind of struggled this year, in terms of valuation. So what do you think are some of those factors as to why it's kind of took a little dive this year, and how do you expect it to, move on back up and for the rest of the year and maybe into next year as well?
Everything really is taking a hit at the moment because of what is happening in the economy. Like if you look at, like, house prices are now starting to plateau and some of them actually fall in price, and the stock market is taking a big dive. So at the moment, because Bitcoin is so relatively new, I mean, it's 13-year old. Like, that's nothing when we're looking at forms of money. 13 is nothing. So at the moment, it is very correlated to the stock markets, which I do think going forward, I think the more people that learn about it at a fundamental level of what actually is Bitcoin, it will become more of a hedge against fiat, which is the pound, the dollar, euro, yen, whatever. So I think moving forward, the education is the key to this, and to teach people at a fundamental level. The beauty of our conference is we didn't talk about the price. We don't we don't really care about the price at the moment, because it is about teaching people what is Bitcoin. Because if you go down the street and you ask people what is Bitcoin, they don't know the answer, and they feel, a lot of people, if you don't know what it is, you are scared of it. So it's trying to ease people into it, and in a simple way as well, because it can be people can overcomplicate it very easily. Because it is a complicated technology, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, it is also a form of money. And if you also go down the street and you say, how does the pound work? A lot of people couldn't actually answer how this works, how our economy works. What is inflation? I bet 50% of the people don't actually know the answer to that. So, yeah, going forward, I think awareness and an understanding of what Bitcoin is will actually change the narrative and make it more of a hedge against inflation and what is actually happening in our economy. And yeah, that's where I see it going anyway.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the current, economic downturn at the moment with recession, it's looking likely in, many major countries. I hear that, America is, it's expecting it any moment at the moment. So, and so taking that into account, why is Bitcoin a viable alternative to fiat currencies?
So if you look at what we use at the moment, so we're currently using a fiat system, um, which is the pound. Let's just use the pound as an example. And the supply, it all comes down to the supply of the money. And this can be tampered with, and it can be added to. So 2 weeks ago, the Bank of England just printed 65 billion pounds to prop up the economy. And by adding more money to the supply, it devalues yours and my money that we have in a savings account. So the beauty of Bitcoin is that it cannot be tampered with, and you cannot just add more to the supply, because there is 21 million Bitcoin and there will never be any more. So the fact that you can't tamper with it is one. And then there's also, it's not with fiat, the problem with it is there's a small group of people that can control the supply. and they make the decisions. So we didn't get a decision whether whether we could add 65 billion to the supply of our currency. It just got put upon us, which then increases inflation. And inflation is a hidden taxation. So we are actually getting taxed on top of that. When you look at Bitcoin, you can't do that. And it is the majority in the network that make the decision. So by not having a small minority that make all the decisions, that affects so many lives, they affect millions of people's lives. And I think that's the problem, that it is the lower and middle classes that are not benefiting from this and suffering from all of this money getting pumped into the economy, because the richer classes, they know how to play the game. They understand it. They've learnt about money, and they've put their money in assets. They've put it in properties, in gold, and now a lot of them in Bitcoin. And a lot of the lower and middle classes didn't have access to this before, because you can't just say, I'm going to buy another property to save my wealth. Like, I can't do that. It's a lot of money to invest. And with Bitcoin, you can put in, you could go and put in £1 if you wanted right now. I've got a reoccurring buy of £10 a week. And that's it. I can just keep doing that. And that is my savings account. And it gives access to so many people, not just here in the UK, but globally, that can actually act and save money without a small minority devaluing what you actually have and devaluing your wealth. So yeah, that's the beauty of Bitcoin and how it makes it different to the world that we live in. And that's where my passion comes from, is that it all started with, there's a saying in this world that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. And that's a common saying.
Yeah.
And why is that a common saying? We just kind of take it as, yeah, that's how the system is. Like, but why is the system like that? And I think asking yourself why, learning about why, and then looking for a solution that is out with that system is really important. And I encourage anyone, no matter your age, to ask yourself why and do some research into it.
Yeah, you definitely made some really good points there. I mean, obviously, there's that kind of, class division as well that kind of goes into that as well, kind of old money type of, stuff going on there as well. But it kind of also lends on to my, follows into my next question. With, many crypto insiders and experts have, said, Bitcoin will, over the course of the next 10 years or so, it will, rise. It will rise again, like valuations and stuff like that. And like you mentioned before, Jordan, there's a fixed amount of Bitcoin.
Mm-hmm.
I believe it's 21 million, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, is there any challenges in terms of inclusivity when it comes to Bitcoin? And, if over regular for first time investors per se?
Yeah. So I said that it's one of the barriers is it's complicated.
Yeah.
It can be complicated, it can be scary, and that's what puts people off. And that's one thing that we trying to do as a company and at all our conferences is teach this in a simple way that people can actually understand. There's no point coming in and me talking about nodes and blockchain and all of this, that it just puts people off. So that's why I come in with, it's just a form of money. And once you can see how it works, so we had at our conference a lot of people getting shown how a Bitcoin transaction works. And all it is you're just downloading an app, scanning a QR code, and you can send Satoshis, which is a denomination of Bitcoin. to each other. And people are amazed of how fast it happens, and there's no bank in the middle. Which is, yeah, it blows people's minds. So that's a big barrier to break down. But I think more and more people are waking up and realizing. So we've been saying on our podcast since inflation was at 2%, which it's the Bank of England's job to keep inflation at 2%. We've been saying that it's going to go to double digits. I mean, you can see this quite simply if the amount of money that's been printed over the last 3 years.
Falling onto, kind of closing out some of my questions here. What do you believe are the next steps needed for Bitcoin to be treated more like a traditional currency as opposed as an investment tool?
Great question. I think showing people, as I talked about there quickly, the payment side of it, because there's two sides to Bitcoin. There is the people that want to just buy it and hold it as an asset, but it also is a payment network. And I went in Edinburgh, there is a coffee shop that accepts Bitcoin. And I went in and bought my coffee with Bitcoin. So showing people that there is a real utility for this, that it is a form of money. And in a shop window, you know how people have, we accept Visa, we accept MasterCard, Amex. It's going to have, we accept Bitcoin there as well. So, yeah, I think showing people that it can be used as a medium of exchange, because a lot of people just see it as it's just someone sitting in their basement, maybe with multiple different monitors in front of them and looking at the price going up and down. Whereas this thing is changing people's lives. And it's pretty cool that I can sit here in the UK and I could send my friend, I've got friends in Nepal, let's just use that as an example. I could send my friends in Nepal Bitcoin, like, instantly. And if I send it, they will receive it instantly. Well, nearly instantly. And that's amazing. If you think about it, if you tried to do that through a banking system, how long would that take? And how many conversions would that go through to get to that? And how many different systems would that happen? So having one currency that people can use globally, I think this is going to transform. I think it's a technology that is going to transform the world as a whole anyway.
Yeah, it's definitely very interesting to see how, what the next steps are for it. We talk in terms of a payment side with, different, payment terminals trying to integrate it now. So it's definitely picking up some steam anyway from, what I've read in the payment sector. But yeah, Jordan, just to close out the interview, there are still skeptics of Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. If you were to say a critic in front of you right now of Bitcoin, what would you kind of say to them to get on board?
Firstly, I would show them. I would get them to download a Bitcoin wallet on their phone. I would just show them how easy it is, and I could send them Bitcoin. And I think when people see it in real life and see that this thing is actually happening and how easy it is, that does change their perceptions of it. And I would get them to look into some very simple reading and just ease them in a little. Because one thing I've found is you can't push people towards learning about Bitcoin. They have to be eased into it, or they have to be forced into it by the outside system. So by the cost of living crisis. And that's one thing that we've noticed is a lot of people have been looking for alternatives to the pound, as you said earlier. So yeah, I would get them to question things and say, do you have this problem? Are you worried about inflation? Has your electricity bill gone up? has the cost of your weekly shop gone up? Why do you think this is? And see what the answer is, and then I would go from there.
Cheers, thank you. So, yeah, Jordan, thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. And is the Bitcoin Collective conference going to be an annual thing now after, last weekend's success?
Yes, so the end of the last conference, we announced it's going to be in London next year. So the Bitcoin Collective will be moving down to London for 2023, which, yeah, I'm very excited about.
Yeah, that's great. Good to see you're taking it off after what was it, 5 months again? Sorry, 5 months
Yeah.
planning.
Yeah, so we've got a bit more time to plan this one. So hopefully we can make it bigger and better and educate more people about Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's the ultimate goal as well. Thank you for taking time out your schedule. I really appreciate it, and all the best of luck with the conference and the events into next year.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, Callum.